Just tell me when y'all are ready.
We're ready.
A few moments ago, Dewey Green received a sentence of life without the possibility of parole plus 40 years for killing Janice Pitts. While we do not celebrate a young man going to prison for the rest of his life, we do celebrate the life of Janice Pitts and achieving justice for her. Doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, how much money you have, or who you are. You victimize the citizens of Douglas County, we're going to do everything we can to hold you accountable. And that's why these individuals standing to my right over the last several months have invested their hearts and souls into seeking justice for Janice Pitts. They've been up here morning, noon, and night because they believe in what we do. Many have talked about Dewey Green, but this case is about Janice Pitts and the loss of her life and what her family lives with from now on. I want to bring to the podium my chief assistant, Ryan Leonard, who is in charge of the prosecution in the case, and he'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Like Mr. Fortner said, my name is Ryan Leonard. Me along with David Amati. This is Emily Richardson. This is Susan Sweat. She's the lead case agent from the sheriff's office. The other two are with the DA's office. We have devoted a lot of our time, all of our time, over the past 6 months to this case. This is a case that this office took very seriously. This is a case that this community took very seriously, which I think was apparent by the witnesses that came into the courtroom and testified. And this is also a case that the jury and the judge took very seriously, and they all made informed, educated decisions. We stand behind the jury's decision. I think it was the just decision in this case. I think the just sentence was the sentence that Judge Emerson handed down, and I'm proud of everybody that was involved, from the eyewitnesses on the scene to the law enforcement that put all their time and energy into it, to our office, to the jury that considered this case and rendered their decision. It was not an easy decision from the standpoint of you're evaluating, like Mr. Fortner said, a young man who is facing a very serious punishment as a result of his crimes, but you're also weighing the tragedy and what happened to Ms. Pitts and her family. So they did not take their decision lightly, and I thank them for that. That's what you want. You want people that honestly evaluate the evidence. You don't want people that just roll in and decide the case based on who's more popular, who has more money, who they like better, and the jury in this case did not do that. They evaluated the evidence regardless of what Mr. Green's opinion of the trial and the jury and the evidence is. From my standpoint, it was a fair trial, and it was a just, honest, well-informed decision by the jury. Any questions that you all have that I can answer, I'm happy to answer. I may not be able to answer some of them based on the fact that it is going to be on appeal, but I'll do my best. Anybody have anything?
Well, what is your take on the polygraph test?
The polygraph test, it's a complicated issue. I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail on it as far as what I know about. I've never gone through specifically what was asked and what was said. I think Mr. Green said it was an FBI Polygraph Examiner, or the FBI did it. I think he's actually retired. I think both of the people that worked on it were retired and are privately employed in that capacity. But I think Judge Emerson was very clear that the law in the state of Georgia is that that's not admissible evidence. It was ruled on by a prior judge, Judge James, who had health issues and couldn't preside on the case. And so when Judge Emerson took over the case, that issue had already been addressed and had already been resolved prior to trial. So I don't really want to get into too much of the minutia of what was said, what wasn't said, what was asked, what wasn't asked, because that potentially is going to be an issue on appeal. But, as the judge said, the character evidence, the defense in this case, which was apparent, was his state of mind and his intent. And their entire defense was that he had a head injury and therefore didn't intend the actions that all the eyewitnesses saw happen. Well, what Judge Emerson ruled was we were allowed to present evidence that rebutted their defense, and along those lines was drug evidence, evidence that he had taken drugs, evidence that he had a history of taking drugs, and all of that was permissible to rebut the defense that they raised. So the concept that this was just a character assassination is not accurate. You know, this was not a straight up case where he was accused of doing something and then we tried to smear his character. That's in no way accurate. It was where we had evidence that went to rebut his state of mind, went to show that he potentially was under the influence and had reduced inhibitions and increased risk-taking, and that's part of why he did what he did in this case. So we disagree. I wasn't going to rehash the entire stated evidence in this case during sentencing, but we disagree with the defendant and Mr. Head's position as to the fairness of this trial and whether good evidence, relevant, admissible evidence was admitted.
With everything you know and stuff that we probably don't even know about behind the case and everything, why do you think he did it?
I think it's exactly what I said in my closing argument in the trial. I think that he had reduced inhibitions, increased risk-taking based on the drugs in his system, which were not prescribed to him. And I think he lost his temper. Anybody, I know you all are not from Douglas County, but anybody that drives through that intersection knows how bad the traffic is, how it gets backed up, how you'll only move a few car lengths at a light. And so as soon as the people in this community, as soon as I heard what had happened out there, it was not a stretch to think that this was a road rage type incident. So, that's...
Given what you said in court about his lack of remorse, how much do you think his outburst the other day hurt him?
Well, I mean, you mean as far as sentencing is concerned?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the die had already been cast as far as his lack of remorse. I mean, I said it today, and I've never seen a case where someone continued to show such lack of remorse throughout the case. We had the videos that we played of him clearly, dancing, doing cartwheels, and the testimony of one of the law enforcement officers when he was smiling in the jail interview room. She said it looked like he was celebrating the fact, or enjoying himself, something along those lines, So that was not the lone instance. If it had been the lone instance of him showing no remorse, then arguably, it might have an impact, but I don't think it did in this case. I think it was in line with his behavior throughout. So.
I know this has been a long ordeal for the family.
Yep.
And we're probably ready to move on from this experience. Is there anyone? And if you would, just so we have the correct spelling of your first and last name too, please.
Aisha Davis, IESHA DAVIS. It's still very, very fresh for my family. We're still trying to process the fact that my mother is no longer here. I do want to say that I thank everyone in Douglasville for helping me that day on June 25th, me and my son. If it wouldn't have been for all the people and all the good Samaritans in Douglasville, I don't know what I would have done. Everybody reacted so fast, I want to thank the young woman who got my son out the car, because I was so disheveled that day. I completely forgot about my son being in the car. I was just trying to, help save my mom's life. So I just want to thank everybody who played a part in helping out that day. I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart, and I know that that was a day that changed not only my life, my sister's life, my little brother's life, and my son's life, but it also changed their life. It's something that I pray no other family have to feel, ever have to go through. And I just want to say I thank everybody for everything that they done to bring justice for my mother. 'Cause that's what was most important, is that my mother, life was taken, and I just wanted him to take responsibility. And unfortunately, the judge was able to make him take responsibility, but I wanted him to take responsibility himself. And I didn't get that, but we still got justice. So I just want to thank everyone.
How is your son doing?
My son is not doing so well as far as my mother being gone. My mother and my son were very close. Me and my sister both know. We both grown, but my mother, my little brother, and my son, that was her world. So my son is still having a hard time. He asks me every day if Jesus is going to give her back today, and I have to tell him no, Jesus isn't done with her yet. So he's still processing the fact that she's not coming back. He's so used to seeing her every morning. It's still a struggle. Every morning he asks me the same thing every day, and I have to tell him no.
How old is he?
He's 5 now.
What does today mean for you after the 13 months that your family has now gone through this, especially after how emotional Friday must have been? What is life without parole plus 40, what does that mean for
That's
your family?
victory. My name is Makita Davis. I'm the younger daughter. That's victory for our family. That's victory for the city of Douglasville, because as a community, when things like this happen, we're all affected. Could have been anyone's mother, anyone's sister, anyone's daughter. So that's the reason why this case is very, very important. It's not just the action that was done. It's just about all our safety now and moving on from this point. So we feel victorious. We're very, very in a good place. But it's a long fight ahead of us,
You
basically.
had some very harsh words to say to him in the courtroom. Do you ever feel that you ever get to a point to where you can give forgiveness to him?
Well, forgiveness is given when a person admits to their wrongdoings. When you are denying what you did and you were behind the wheel that killed my mother, I can't forgive you. I forgive those that are honest. I forgive those that are sincere. Being as though Dewey Green was not, I have no remorse for him, just like he had no remorse for my mother.
Thank you, guys.
All righty?
You was gonna go there? No, I had to go there, because she gave it to me in court.
Mr. Ford? Was that, when you were talking about how much money you had, was that